Hi everybody, this is Yosarian from BoyMeetsPhone.com. What I have here today is the LG G2. This is the latest flagship device by LG. So I'm going to take a quick hardware tour to start off our review. Up front we have a 5.2-inch True HD IPS display, so it's a resolution of 1920 by 1080. Below the display we just have the LG logo. There are no buttons on this device, just use the on-screen navigation buttons. Above the display we have our earpiece grill, a notification light, the proximity and ambient light sensors, and a 2 megapixel front-facing camera. On this side we have our SIM tray, and it uses a micro SIM card. On the bottom we have a 3.5mm headphone jack, our micro USB port, and then we also have two grills right here. This would give you the illusion that this does have dual speakers, but this one right here is the speaker, and this one right here hides the main microphone. So it's a little bit disappointing that you don't have dual speakers. And there's nothing on this side. If you're wondering where the volume rocker and the power button are, they're actually on the back of this device. You can see there's the volume rocker and there's the power button right there. You press the power button, you'll see the nice little light. There's an LED surrounding that. One of my main concerns when I saw this device was how the position of the volume rocker and the power button was going to become an issue when you lay it flat on a device. Oh, sorry, flat on a surface. But because of how the hump is, see this hump right here actually keeps the volume rocker from laying flat. But then also the power button itself is recessed into that hump right there. Therefore, when you lay it flat, the power button is also not laying on the surface. So that makes it so you don't have to worry about that issue. Above the buttons, we have a 13 megapixel autofocus camera with optical image stabilization. We also have a single LED flash. As you can tell, the back is not glass. It is plastic and it is a fingerprint magnet, so that's something you're going to want to be advised of beforehand. If you are against having fingerprints all over your device, you want to make sure you are prepared for that and have something to clean it off with, or maybe you want to avoid it just because of that. So it's not the best reason to avoid this device. It does have a non-removable back, so the battery is embedded into the device. It has a 3000 milliamp hour battery embedded inside, and also means that there is no expandable storage on this model. So you have the option of a 16 gig or a 32 gig. So make sure you choose wisely when you decide which version of this phone to get. Like I said, the G2 is using a True HD IPS display, and this has to be one of the best displays I have seen in some time. It has very, very nice viewing angles. You can see the viewing angles on this are superb. Color reproduction is really nice, very vibrant, bright colors. It has a very nice pixel density because of the size and the resolution, so you're not going to notice any jaggedness in the text. It's a very, very sharp display. And outdoor visibility on it has not been bad at all. So I have to say LG has done a great job improving their True HD IPS displays. The G2 is running Android 4.2.2 Jelly Bean with the LG Optimus user experience over it. They've made some major improvements to it and added some cool features. The first one I'm going to show off is the knock on. If you tap on the display twice, it turns on the display. It does this whenever you're at the home screen. You can actually double tap on a blank area to turn it off too. It's a useful feature for one-handed operation, and especially if you just want to quickly glance at your display. You don't have to sit there and reach back and press the power button. Just quickly double tap, turn it on and off. As you can see in the bottom here, we have some quick launch icons. You can change that within the settings. You also go back to the lock screen. As a 4.2 Jelly Bean device, you also have the option of the lock screen widgets and sliding over to the left completely to access the camera. Unlock this device. You can see it's a very zippy UI. Pinching in on the display will give you an overview of all the home panels you have available. From the overview, you can rearrange the panels, you can add more, you can delete them. So you can do a normal array of things you expect to be able to find on a non-stock Android device. If you pinch out on the display, you get a full view of your wallpaper. Completely honest, I'm not too sure the usefulness of this feature. It's nice to be able to see your wallpaper, especially if you're trying to show it off to somebody, but I'm lost in the usefulness of it. But it's there. If you look at the bottom, the on-screen buttons do not have anything around it. They actually have a full view of the wallpaper. And it actually also extends to the notification bar up top. You can see that there's no gray area up there. You can just see the full wallpaper, which is quite nice. It adds to the look of the display. Makes it look that much better and that much cleaner to be able to see everything and still have your wallpaper in the back. Pressing and holding on the display, bring up the option to add apps, widgets, and change your wallpaper. Pulling down on the notification, you can see we have our quick settings right here. And you can edit these and choose which quick settings you want up top there. You also have your Q-Slide apps. Q-Slide has been updated this year. So let's say if I open up the phone, you can grab this and drag it to the corner. Sorry. And now it'll turn the little icon in the corner, so if you want to quickly access it, you can just tap and bring it back out. And of course, you can make it translucent by moving the slider, so you can actually see what's going on behind your mini app. You are still limited to 2 apps being open at a time, but still it is a nice feature to have. You have controls for your brightness and your sound right there. You can see right now I have some stuff up there. You get the standard notifications for Android Jelly Bean, so you can pinch in, swipe to dismiss stuff, or you can just go up here and hit clear to clear everything. Tap right here, go into the settings for the home screen, the lock screen, and also add in apps and widgets from there. And you also get into your main settings menu. For home screen settings, you can do things like change the swipe effects. Right now I have on carousel. I have several different to choose from, and actually gives you a preview of it when you tap on it. I thought carousel was kind of cool, so I put that up for a bit. I'm actually switched to domino for the moment. You can change your wallpaper from here. You also change if you want the home screen to loop, and also make it so you can use the home screen in both portrait and landscape. So I'm actually going to turn that off. And now, if I go like that, the home screen will work in both portrait and landscape. It's nice to have that option. It's not necessarily something everybody's going to want to have, but having options to make your device a little bit more personal and more to your liking is always good. And some people like having the ability to use their phone no matter which orientation they have it in. Since this is the AT&T version I have right here, you can see that there's a lot of AT&T apps on board. So I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit. It does come preloaded with Amazon Kindle. You have the drive mode, you have AT&T's Locker, AT&T's Navigator, ready to go. You have smart Wi-Fi. You have device help. You have a data manager. You also have AT&T's messaging aggregator. You have mobile hotspot. You have My AT&T to manage your account information. Polaris Office does come preloaded. You have Yellow Page Mobile on this device preloaded. You have AT&T's code scanner, AT&T's family map. And that's pretty much it for AT&T apps on board. From LG, you get Quick Memo, you get Notebook, you get Life Squared, so that allows you to aggregate like things to save specific moments of your life together, like photos, like, save with text messages and stuff like that. There's Notebook right there. You have a built-in video editor, which is nice to see. You have your task manager, which is also nice to see. Oops, sorry. Jumped into setting there. You have Quick Remote, which allows you to use the IR blaster, which is on the top of this device. It's pretty hard to make out. So we go right there on the top of the device. There's an IR blaster, so it allows you to use this as a remote. You can either set it up. You can set it up by room, so you have different room options. You can add the device by clicking there. You can set it up by just tapping the TV and searching for which type of TV and setting it up that way, and have a preloaded remote, or you can create a universal remote, which is pretty cool. I found that creating the universal remote had its issues. For one, you can't access the universal remote that you create from the lock screen, which is a little bit disappointing. You also don't have the option of accessing it from the pull-down notification, because when you do have a quick remote set up, you can't access them from the pull-down notification, which is a really nice way to quickly jump into it, but if you're going to be using a universal remote, you're going to be missing out on that feature. I also found that it took a bit to use, because what you can do is you can use the remote for, say you're setting up your TV, but it doesn't, you want to designate specific buttons. You hold that remote in front of the IR blaster and press that button when you're ready to set it up for this particular button you have on the device. And how you add buttons go like this. So you can customize the layout there, but you can set that button for power by pressing the power button when you're heading towards this device when this is selected after you hit next. See, there's a little. I found that was, it took a bit to get that done, so this is not a quick process to create your own universal remote, but if you really want that functionality, it's there. It works great when you, after going through the long setup, but also you can't access it from the lock screen, which is a bit of a letdown. So I'm going to head back to the app drawer. And that's pretty much it that you get from LG on this device. Also, the file manager, which is always nice to see, be able to get into your files that way. If you hit this button right here, you'll be able to edit. Anything with an X by it can be removed, which is nice to see. And nice to see a good amount of the AT&T apps can be removed from this device, so if you don't want them there, they are removable. It's a way to go, AT&T, on that one. Create folders, you just drag them on top of each other. And now I have folders, and you can tap there to rename it. Oh. There, you can rename it and also change the folder color, which is pretty sweet too. Tapping here will allow you to search, and tapping here will bring you into your widgets. I'm a little confused on why they have the two options to get into widgets. It seems like the Optimus UX is competing with the regular Jelly Bean experience in that sense. So that's a little bit confusing to me, but that option is there. So that's a look at the app drawer on the G2. In the lock screen settings, you can do things like change the swipe effects. So you have several different sheets. You have ripple, particle, crystal, for white hole, and then you have dewdrop. You can also change if you have a lock pattern or use face unlock or anything like that on the device. You can also add weather animation, so that's nice. When you double tap to unlock your phone, you can see what the weather is going to be like outside or what the weather is like outside already. Just change the wallpaper separately from the wallpaper on the home screen, so you can have separate wallpapers. You can add owner information. You can also customize which shortcuts show up on the bottom there. And these are the ones that are there by default. So you have phone, message, voicemate, browser, and camera. You can also change the lock screen timeout and if the power button will instantly lock the device. LG added a creative take on multitasking with the slide aside. If you open the app, take 3 fingers and slide it this way. You can see where it says it was saved. If we open another app, open that and do the same thing. Now you have 2 apps saved. You are limited to 3 apps, so I'm going to open up. I'm going to open up Voicemate actually. Let's slide that aside. You see if I try to do that with another app, so if I open Speed Test and I try to slide it aside, the driver says that cannot add any more apps. If I go like this with 3 fingers, I can bring back up those apps and do things like close it or just tap to open it again. So I think that's pretty cool, have the ability to multitask like that, though I find 3 fingers a little bit difficult at times to do. I would like to see like maybe a 2-finger swipe or something like that. But it works rather nicely, and it's a creative way to handle multitasking. If you want to bring up the traditional multitasking, what you actually would have to do is press and hold the home button. It gives you more of a traditional multitasking view. You can also just clear all, and also go to a task manager from here. Oddly enough, you don't have a multitasking button here. So if I actually go into the phone settings and go into display, you actually have several options for the front touch buttons, but none of them will actually bring up multitasking. That's a weird omission. You can bring up things, you see right here, you can pull down the notification, you can bring up quick memo. I think it would have been made more sense if they allowed you to do maybe bring up the apps that you slide aside rather than pulling down the notification or something like that, or at least giving that option. I think that's a little weird that they did not. But you also can change the theme of the lock screen, the control buttons, sorry. So you can have a white granulation one, and you have black granulation. And you can also set right here if you want to have it transparent at the home screen. Though I would suggest always keeping that on because it makes the home screen look pretty clean. Well, like I said, it seems weird that they don't give you a traditional multitasking button, or, sorry, let's probably go and make sure I have that. So it looks a lot more cleaner when you actually have it, so you can see the background from it. But it's still fun and weird that you don't have the option of the traditional multitasking button there, or not even this ability to use the slide aside function from there. I think that would have been a lot more useful than bringing down the notification tray. For some people, the G2 might be a very large device and awkward to hold, so thinking of this, LG included one-handed operation, which things like the dial pad and the keyboard, and also the keypad for the lock screen, when you put in your password, can be shifted to one side of the device, making it easier to operate with one hand. So that's a nice addition by LG. The LG keyboard is the default and also the only keyboard available on the G2 when you get it in your hands. I like the fact that the numbers are available up top there, taking advantage of the large display. However, I'm not that fond of the spacebar because it is not that big. I found that depending on which keyboard you're using, which app you're in, this actually will get smaller. You have the option of switching from the full layout to a one-handed operation mode, going like that. So that makes it easier to type with one hand, while still offering a good amount of space. And in there you can also change the language input if you have other languages on board. Here you can get into your symbols, your emoticons, have a plethora of different ones to choose from. Let me switch back to there. From here you also have the option of a handwriting mode, which works fairly well. So we say, see, it works fairly well with the handwriting mode. You have the voice input, which will dictate, well, while you're saying it, it will write it down. And of course, since this is powered by Google, this works rather smooth. Though sometimes it does get words wrong, as you can tell by that battery there. And also it doesn't help that I don't speak that loud. Whereas other options go, you have your clip tray, which every time you save something, you copy something, it saves it into this clip tray so you can have access to it, which is a really nice idea, especially seeing as most phones you only have one thing on your clipboard at a time. This allows you to have multiple things. So say if you had saved some writing and then you saw something else and you copied it and then you forgot that you needed that writing that you had saved before, like an address. On the G2, you don't have to worry about it because you have quick access to it through the clip tray. You can access that by either going there or tapping here, and then you have the clip tray right there. So either by the keyboard or in the area where you would normally go to select text. So that's a look at text input with the G2. Another interesting feature of the G2 is plug and pop. If I plug in these headphones to the bottom here, the icon will appear, as well as these app icons to launch into the music, video, YouTube, or phone dialer. You can also edit and show which apps you want to appear down there. So if you want Google Play Music on there instead, or Pandora or Spotify or something like that, instead of any of those, you can switch those out for it. I think that's a useful feature to have on this device. So say add a play music. Now if I go, now play music's there. So I think that's a pretty useful feature to have on this device. One of the features I was a little bit apprehensive about since I actually first heard about the G2 was guest mode. Basically what guest mode allows you to do is set up a special area for, like, if you want your kids or someone else to use your device, when it would only have access to certain apps. There's a couple of issues I take with the guest mode, though it does work. See, you do have to use a lock pattern for one thing. For me, I think that using face unlock would be a lot easier, especially if you're handing this to a kid. You're expecting them to remember a pattern. I think it would be easier for the kid to just be able to unlock it with their face, though it is good to build, memory by making them try to remember a pattern. It would be easier, or at least having the option of being able to just do a face unlock would be nice, but you only have the option of using a pattern unlock. I'm actually going to set up guest mode now to show you my other issue. And this is going to be the guest mode pattern, so I'm just going to make a big G. So now if I go into the lock screen, and if I put that G in, I'll go into guest mode. You see there's only certain apps there. You don't have access to the settings, you don't have access to pull-down notification, you just have those apps there. But herein lies the issue. depending on what apps you use, they can access the rest of the phone. Now these are the default apps, as you see. This is the apps that they set up for you to use. But this actually highlights the issue. Let's say I go into camera. Okay, now that I'm in camera, I have access to the gallery. Some cat, some flowers. But now I can go into share, and now all of these apps that the camera had access to, because it had access to the gallery, I have access to. So therefore, anybody using your device in guest mode will now have access to any of these apps. So just go into your email, go through your text messages, go into your Google Plus. So it seems like something, you know, guest mode is nice to have, but it just does not seem to work unless you are very, very careful about which apps you choose. And there's such a limited number of apps available that don't have access to other apps. Even games sometimes have access to like your Facebook and things like that, because you can connect to your Facebook. So it's a dangerous thing, and it's a good idea, but I felt like it needed more to it. Like they needed to make a special camera or special like versions of the apps that are smaller that don't have access to it, or something. They needed to do something to make it so you can't have access to other apps from within guest mode, because it seems to completely skip around the idea of guest mode, which is keeping them away from certain things on your device by allowing them to use it. The LG G2 is powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 chipset that consists of a quad-core 2.3 GHz Crate 400 CPU, a Adreno 330 GPU, and 2 gigs of dual-channel DDR3 RAM, low-power DDR3 RAM. As far as performance goes on this device, this is among the fastest Android devices I've used. I found that even with tons of apps open, you're not going to notice any lag or any slowdown, and that's partly thanks to how LG tends to handle the memory on their device. They usually do a good job at memory management, and this device is no exception to that. As far as call quality goes, I didn't have any issues using the earpiece. They just have a pretty cool feature. When you are receiving a call, when you lift it up towards your ear, it will actually bring you into the call. I do have my misgivings about that, because it could end up with people that you don't want answering the phone, but it does work rather nicely, and the callers had no issues hearing me. Found that the sound through the speaker was a little bit disappointing. While listening to music, especially the high quality audio files that it supports, I found that it sounded quite pleasant, but just normal listening to phone conversations or calling anybody using a speakerphone, I found that it was a little bit on the a lot of background noise and a lot of static on it. It wasn't as good as I would like it to have been. As far as battery life on this device goes, this has a 3000 milliamp hour battery. This also is a SiO plus battery, so it's using silicon based material for its anode. So this also is really good at keeping a charge for a longer period of time when you're not doing much. So battery life on this device was no issue, had no issue getting through over a day of usage with it. And I'm not a power user per se, depending, especially when I have tons of phones on me, but I did heavily use this device for a while, and it had no issues getting through a day of usage. And that included playing video games, watching movies on it, and things like that. So I was quite happy with the battery life on the G2. So taking a look at the camera app on the G2, you can see that the layout is fairly simple. Right here we have a switch to change from taking stills to video. It took a little bit longer than normal to switch, which is weird, because if I use the other one, so I'm going to pick out the other one and do the same thing, you see that changing it is actually a lot quicker. I think that actually has to do with the lock screen. If you have a lock pattern on it, it actually will take a little bit longer to switch. As you can see, I have access to the gallery for there. See this one, I do not. So that actually has a lock pattern on it. You can see right there, I actually went and showed the lock screen, unlike the one that does not have a lock screen on it. But the layout is fairly simple. Right here you have the switch to change from taking stills to video. You have your on-screen shutter button. The volume rocker on it, the volume rocker also acts as a shutter button, so if you press and hold that, move the finger out the way, you can use that to take a picture. And right here you have a preview of the last image taken. In this corner you have your flash controls, so you have the option of no flash, forced flash, and automatic flash, so it will change depending on the lighting conditions. You have your switch to change from the 13 megapixel rear facing camera to the 2 megapixel front facing camera. You can see me there. You have your different shooting modes. You have a lot of modes to choose from. You have normal, clear shot. Clear shot's kind of like erase shot on the Galaxy S4, where you can erase moving subjects in the back. It works a little bit differently, but it does the same thing, and it also does it really well. You have your dynamic tones, which is your HDR mode. You have a panoramic mode. You also have a VR panoramic, which is their take on Photosphere. Just nice to see something like that on a manufactured skin device. You have your burst shot, which will take several shots when you hold down. Take up to 20 shots there. You have your beauty shot, which will remove any blemishes and soften the subject. You have dual camera, so you can actually use both cameras to try to get you in the shot. You can also drag that around depending on where you want it. You can make it bigger if you want to, or make it smaller. You have time catch mode, which will shoot 5 shots in quick succession. So if you're taking photos of a kid, you can make sure that, or a group of people, can see if they blinked or anything like that. Try to get the best shot out of the bunch. You have your intelligent auto, which will leave all these selecting up to the device. You have sports mode, it's good for capturing moving subjects like kids. And you also have a night shot. I'm going to switch back to normal right now. In settings, you have your cheese shutter, which is something you'll see on a lot of LG devices, so you can turn it on. So if I say cheese, whiskey, apparently, LG, smile, or kimchi. So if I go back, kimchi, we'll take a photo. You can control the brightness, focus. You have face tracking as a separate setting, which always makes me sad. I'd like to see face tracking as a default or an option beyond everything else, and not have a separate setting for autofocus and face tracking, but it's a separate setting. But you also have manual focus, so you can manually control the focus instead of doing tap to focus. So you get anywhere from a macro shot to infinity, which is for further away objects, of course. Change your image size. By default, it's going to be at 10 megapixels because that is the wider viewing angle, so it actually looks a lot more pleasing on the display. Though you're probably going to want to, if you want to get the full effect of all of the pixels available, change it to 13 or change it to 8 to save room but still get a really good image. You control your ISO all the way up to 800. Control your white balance, add color effects, turn the timer on and off, or set how long you want that on. Change geotagging on and off. Right here you have the option of changing the volume key to capture. If you want to turn that off, you can. Though I found that it's really good for self-portraits, so you might want to keep that on, especially if you're prone to taking self-portraits of yourself or taking portraits with other people using the front-facing camera. It is very nice to be able to do that using the volume rocker in the back. And then you can also change your shutter sound. So you have that one's kind of funny, but I always stick with the classic. As far as image quality goes, I found that this camera is really good. You can see it actually has 9-zone focus there. So you have several zones of focus, or you can just tap to focus. I found that this camera is very quick and takes very nice photos. So I was not disappointed whatsoever with the photo quality on this device. As far as video goes, you have several different settings in video. As far as modes go, you have live effects, which is something you see on a lot of LG devices. So you can do big mouth, big eyes, small mouth, big nose, small eyes, or squish the person's face. Yeah, dual recording. This is just like dual camera, where you have, well, do photo when you have the little box in the corner. You can move that around and make it smaller, so you can get yourself into the video, or videotape your reaction of you taking the video. And then you have tracking zoom out. This one is really interesting. You lock into an area, and you press and hold. Now it's locked there, and it will keep locked on that section. So if I move it around, it will still try to keep that section locked in the frame. As long as it's still in the frame, it will keep it locked. As I move out of frame, I'm recording that, sorry. So let's try that again. I was paying way more attention to the frame on the phone and not the frame on my camera or recording. See, if I move around, it will keep that area locked in. That works really good. You can also manually do this while recording. I attempted this while I was recording my goddaughter on a roller coaster, and I can say it's not that easy to do. You also have the option of audio zoom. If I go here, so when you're recording, you see that right there, it says audio zoom. You can zoom in on an area to record the audio from that specific area. And it's only active during landscape mode, which is a little disappointing, though this is normally how people hold a camera when they're recording. And when you zoom in, the audio in that area will be enhanced. And then you can zoom out. So it's good if you're like recording like a play or something like that and you want to zoom in on your kid specifically and be able to listen a little bit better. So that's a really cool feature. You also can take photos while recording video. And then you can pause, and then there's a stop button there. Found it weird that by default this is a pause button, so it does make it so you can pick up and start recording again later. And you have to hit there to actually stop recording. As far as other settings go, you can change the video size. You have full HD at 60 frames per second, which makes super smooth videos. You have a 30 frame per second settings. You have a 720p video, and then you have all the way down to a MSM message size. Is a really small video there. And again, you have the white balance, color controls, geotagging, and can set the volume key to be able to start recording. Video quality on this was really good, though I did find that there was a little bit of issue with the autofocus while recording at 60 frames per second. I found it was actually a little bit slow while recording that high frame rate. But other than that, video recording on this device was quite nice. Color reproduction was good. Same thing with the photos. Color reproduction was awesome. So all in all, they did a great job with this camera, and it does have optical image stabilization on it, so it does help reduce motion blur when you're taking a photo, which is good because I move around a lot, and especially when I'm taking pictures of my goddaughter, and it's a lot of moving around, and it actually helped a lot to be able to take some really clear shots of my little moving kids. So if you're taking a lot of photos of moving objects, especially moving kids, having optical image stabilization is a very nice feature, and it works rather well on this device. LG has never been shy about taking risks when it comes to the design of their devices, and moving the buttons to the back of the phone was a pretty risky move. You risk a lot of people not liking it, but I have to say that it works out pretty nicely. How I normally hold a phone, how many other people normally hold a phone, which is actually why they made this move. It makes sense to have the buttons back there. Design of this device is pretty nice, but the performance is even better. The performance of this device, you're getting a super fast device with a great screen, a great camera, and this has to be one of the top 5 Android devices available right now. And the fact that you can grab it on any carrier makes it that much better. For the full in-depth review of the LG G2 and plenty of other devices, make sure to head over to the site boymeetsphone.com. Remember to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and found it informative, and to subscribe to the YouTube channel to catch up on more of my reviews. So this has been Yossarian from boymeetsphone.com. Thanks for watching.